My goal is clear: to prevent anyone from entering Class A. Now, everything is ready. Bring it on. As expected, Clebius successfully stopped most of the students, and Tanya also arrived here. However, with her current abilities, she couldn't confront Clebius. Let's end things quickly. A loud explosion came from halfway up the mountain, drawing Clebius's attention. That was Anis's responsibility area. Taking advantage of Clebius's distraction, Tanya and Kylie sneaked past. Although top assistant Anis is very proficient in practical and academic aspects, her level in combat magic is only slightly better than students of the same grade. However, this is enough to make her the nightmare of the first-year students. At this time, a freshman demonstrated extremely high magical skills. His name is Joseph. Unlike the head of the alchemy department's sister, Joseph, at his young age, can freely use intermediate magic, giving him a chance to compete for the top spot. In other words, he's a genius. He is a leading top student candidate. In the end, Anis had to let him pass. Then Joseph immediately moved his way up the mountain. At this time, Anis felt defeated. Anis had arranged this class division exam flawlessly, but the most crucial magical device was damaged, and she couldn't think of a solution herself. All of this required Ed to take charge. Unexpectedly, Ed not only did not complain, but also offered the most useful suggestion. This made Anis realize she couldn't even hold this front, leading to further disappointment in herself, because she kept thinking of the trustworthy face that resolved this situation in whatever way possible. Meanwhile, on the other side, I welcome the first visitor. Joseph, you should be clear about the content of the exam, right? You just need to place the magic stone on the altar. However, I won't let you succeed easily. At this moment, Joseph was continuously observing his surroundings. His conversation with me was just to buy time. Soon, he noticed a vision disc nearby, but found its color different from what he had seen before. He also didn't feel any magic from me and noticed traces of magic stone usage on the ground. I'm the first one to reach the summit. The senior has already used a magic stone, which means his magic reserves are low. It's disappointing to think that I expected to learn a lot here in Sylvania. At that moment, Joseph was already thinking about what flavor of sandwich he would eat after descending the mountain. Then, he released an intermediate spell at Ed. If you hadn't anticipated the trajectory beforehand, it would basically be impossible to dodge this magic, Joseph thought. However, to his surprise, Ed dodged it. From the flow of things, he'll use fire magic. Judging by his level, it'll either be ignition or scorch. Joseph pondered, but he quickly became puzzled. Why is his magic dispersing directly towards the ground? Then, a fire attack in a parabolic shape came, larger than he had anticipated. He realized that Ed's basic magic training was very solid, and he might have already reached an intermediate level. However, this seemed like a waste of effort to Joseph. No matter how strong his fire magic is, it can't break through my defensive magic. Plus, he doesn't have much magic reserve to afford such expenditure. Battles between mages are often decided based on the amount of one's mana, so if the two consume a similar amount of mana, whoever has more mana determines the winner. Joseph judged that Ed's experience in magical combat must be quite limited. He won't be able to block my offense magic or maintain his ignition once he runs out of mana. Battles between mages can be very intricate. However, before Joseph could react, Ed had already breached his defense. You can block spells with your defensive magic circle, but not physical force. With that, Ed kicked Joseph's face. You wouldn't think that mages only fight against other mages, would you? Ed said coldly. Joseph backed down. He didn't expect his shield to be broken by Ed. He began to reassess the senior's capabilities. It seems I shouldn't underestimate him anymore. I'll be using mid-rank ice magic. Fire magic again? Does he plan to use fire magic against my ice magic? Joseph speculated that Ed might want to use steam to obscure his vision like before, but he chuckled lightly. Don't forget, I can use other elemental magic too. Immediately, Joseph also released fire magic. At the same time, I activated the Blessing of Recovery, which temporarily enhances fire resistance. This totally stunned Joseph. Damn it, where did that dagger come from? However, his casting speed was still slightly better. Just as he was ready to go all out, Ed suddenly chose to distance himself. The next second, I called out to Mug and used the Spirit Formula Explosion. Instantly, Joseph was blasted away. He also stumbles several times before finally landing his back in a tree. Joseph thought, keep it together. Think, his speed couldn't be faster than mine. That was spirit magic. It's not explosion magic, but a spirit formula. Now I understand how he went through my scorch with his bare body. It's because he can use the spirit magic Blessing of Recovery. He purposely hid his spirit's form within the fire. He only used 2 techniques and still had a bunch of magic devices unused. Who exactly is this guy? Then, Joseph dropped the magic stone and said softly, I lost. The magic stone slowly rolled to the back of my feet. As I turned around, he suddenly launched an intermediate magic attack at me, but I was prepared and easily dodged his assault. However, Joseph seemed not ready to give up easily. His fist heavily slammed towards my face. But for someone who has spent a lifetime studying magic, such punches could not cause me any harm. Strong wind slowly surges, which shocked Joseph. No way. Could it be? Protection of the wind. When an unexpected attack is recognized, the enemy will be blown away by the wind. I threw him into the skies with a fierce wind. He lands his back on the tree again, and when the dust settles, settles, I can see his face. He mutters, "This time, I truly lost." Then, the magic stone was broken into pieces. His performance did impress me. Good work. That ending was amazing. It was a wonderful decision. You landed a blow. Just before Joseph fell unconscious, he asked in a low voice, "What is your name?" "Ed Rothtaylor." Then, Joseph was taken away by Onyx. The scene shifts to another side. Elka asked Zix, "Why didn't you go to the combat department but chose the magic department instead?" It turns out, Zix felt that the position of chief didn't hold much significance for him because the upcoming second-year chief of the combat department is Clebius, and he knew he couldn't beat Clebius. However, at this moment, Clebius was knocked out by a first-year student with a single move. What skill did she use just now? Clebius passed out before he could figure it out. "Clebius, you okay? Get it together." Onyx tried waking him up 20 minutes before the end of the exam. When Tanya and Kylie reached the summit, they were instantly stunned because the final guardian of the last challenge turned out to be her own brother, the person who was once the object of fear and the object of hate. Ed Rothtaylor, "I'll get to the point. Give up." The saintus Clarice had two dreams. "I believe nobility comes from unwavering beliefs you maintain your entire life. You must become like a blank slate." One was the dream she dreamed on the day and was planted by Archbishop Verdio, and the other dream was rather than living as a blank slate, it'd be better to die in wastewater. Saintus Clarice heard a melody, and she slowly opened her eyes. There, she sees someone singing by the window. She sings about the golden field of the imperial capital Clolan, the emerald fields of the land of farming Pulin, the red roofs of the commerce city Oldek, the turquoise intelligence of the land of scholars Sylvania, past the Drastia desert's reddish sand ocean are the purple shadows of the lawless Kohelton. Then she continued strumming, "The pure white is just a very small portion of nature's beautiful colors." She was the one in charge of the holy fire, Adele. After leaving the order, she called herself the romantic. Although it was unclear how she moved from building to building, when the world went to sleep, she sang a song at Clarice's window. The dream she dreamt at night was the outside world that her only friend whispered to her while looking at the stars. "A life where you take classes normally, make friends normally, and love normally. Isn't that where you can feel a sense of nobility? Rather than the countless prayers from believers who revere me, do you know that a hug from someone you love might be more valuable?" After leaving the order, Adele joined Sylvania, and when vacation came, she would go around the world like she does now. After Adele left, Clarice went to the places she spoke of in her dreams every night. At the end of it, Clarice would share a deep hug with someone, and they left together on the path she'd taken alone. The journey that was full of many colors, which sharply contrasted with her life that had simply been pure white, was the most outrageous imaginative thought she could have. But always ensure that you are careful not to reveal your true identity, and that you have to carry that magic engineering item with you at all times. Since you always have the holy magic's blessing, I'm not that worried. But before Archbishop Verdio could finish, Clarice interrupted, "I seem like such a different person, so who would suspect it?" "Verdio, there's nothing bad about being careful," he added. Coming to the academy with the order's arrangement was a natural method of deviating. Nobody paid attention to Clarice, who sat on a wooden bench by the faculty building street. That alone made her feel satisfied, making her breath shallow. There was no one who revered her or bowed their heads to her. At least, not a single person here in Sylvania. Who would bother thinking of Kylie as the saintus? Other than one person, that was me, Ed Rothtaylor. When Tanya stepped onto the final stage and saw her brother guarding it, she was incredibly shocked. Then, I reminded her, "Give up. Even if you are my real sister, I won't go easy on you." At that moment, Tanya found it unbelievable because Ed's aura was even more formidable than that of typical graduates, and he had contracted with a high-level spirit. Kylie reminded Tanya on the side, "I'm giving up. Let's think rationally, Tanya." However, the horrifying images of a high-level spirit from the past re-emerged in Tanya's mind. She gritted her teeth. If she chose to leave now, it would mean nothing had changed. So, she decided not to give up just yet, which shocked Kylie, because according to high status and rank she carries a burden and responsibility on her shoulders. In Tanya's memory, Ed was so weak he couldn't even swing a sword, a person who couldn't even perform basic magic. How could he possibly now have a high-level spirit? She guessed it was all an illusion. Just defeat that spirit, and all illusions will be dispelled, Tanya thought firmly. However, things were not as Tanya imagined. The spirit merely blew a breath, and they were unable to move. Because this was a real high-level spirit, they were quickly blown away. Is this man really Tanya's brother? Kylie's impression of nobles had always been neat appearances, generous smiles, and graceful manners. When she heard that this person, completely opposite to the noble image, was the son of Rothtaylor, she immediately understood that this was the villain Tanya had spoken of. From the beginning, Kylie sensed that Tanya harbored deep hatred for Ed, so she decided to teach Ed a lesson for Tanya. So, she called out to Tanya, telling her to aim for the body. "I'll play the role of the bait. Like I told you, I have a strange constitution, so I definitely won't die outside of special cases." When Tanya heard that Kylie wanted to help her, she was very puzzled, because the current situation was very dangerous, and Kylie had previously expressed disinterest in the exam. Kylie stepped forward. "You said he's a really bad person, and you are the first friend I've made at Sylvania," she said while looking back at Tanya. "Under normal circumstances, circumstances, Tanya would have thought these words to be nonsensical. But on the way to the altar, she witnessed something incredible. The combat faculty senior who had come towards them scarily, Kylie used an unknown power to knock him flying with one move. What shocked Tanya the most was that Kylie, usually timid as a mouse, had taken the initiative to stand out. Did she normally have this much bravery? Kylie started running while shouting. Seems that Tanya is mistaken. Then, Kylie ran in front of Marilda, trying to draw attention. Kylie was this brave because she could use the holy magic's blessing. When the target was attacked by an enemy, a medium level or higher sanctity spell would automatically activate. Although Marilda suffered backlash because of the impact, Kylie was also knocked away. Is that it? Ed commented, but then he heard something. You thought I'd give up? Suddenly, Tanya appeared right next to me and released a basic magic spell emit without hesitation. I was blown away on the spot, but she didn't realize that was just one of my illusions. Seeing this, Tanya immediately felt something was wrong, and then she discovered it was the work of the vision disc. Then, several attacks landed right in front of her. This left Tanya in shock. He couldn't even hold a knife handle before, and now he can use a bow and arrow, and it's a magic-made bow and arrow. Is this guy really Ed Rothtaylor? She was totally shocked. She then closed her eyes out of fear. Her mind flashed back to memories of herself as a child. No matter how hard she tried, nothing changed. Just then, I called out to Tanya, "You've tried hard enough, but I also have my own unavoidable difficulties. After all, I can't just let you win because you're my sister. If I really did that, you'd be upset when you found out, right?" Even though it was just my illusion, she still tried her hardest to subdue me. I genuinely admired her for that. At the same time, Tanya noticed that I was wearing the tie clip she gave me a few days ago. If it were the old brother, he would never wear such a thing. She realized that her brother might really have changed. It was an illusion, but you fought me until the end. You should be proud. You're quite impressive. Hearing this, Tanya can't help but be emotional. Then she burst out crying. Seeing Tanya crying, I was puzzled. Is it really necessary to cry so much just because you didn't get into Class A? Then, Kylie ran over to protect Tanya, thinking I was purposely bullying her. I'll say this now. If you recklessly attack or antagonize me, bad things will happen. At the same time, Claire called out to me. The test is over. Clebius has fainted, so I need your help. Hearing that the test was over, Kylie breathed a sigh of relief, but she quickly realized that her voice seemed to have changed, probably because the transformation magic was wearing off. She remembered that this happened because of excessive magical energy use during the fight. The magic engineering device must have fallen somewhere. She remembered how she was reminded to carry it at all times. At that moment, Kylie was extremely nervous because if her true identity were exposed, her campus life would be completely ruined. Mug picked up the fallen magical device, and I quickly handed it back to Kylie, saying, "Be careful not to lose your things. You're ho kid." What? Okay, Kylie is a bit confused. Fortunately, no one noticed her abnormality. After doing all this, I left without looking back, and thus, the new student class division test was concluded. Ed successfully got all the plots back on track, except for one person. It was a very minor, negligible flaw. Because of this flaw, under the sunset, Kylie gazed at Ed with her ruby-like eyes. She had clearly heard Ed use polite language earlier, but then he changed his tone. Does he know my true identity? Kylie wondered to herself. As Assistant Professor Claire walked down, she told Ed to rest and called out to Onyx to support Clebius. Onyx, while looking above, agreed, "Sure, I'll be on the way. I swear I just saw the shape of a person. I'm sure I was mistaken." Onyx commented while looking above the altar. Time quickly moved on to the evening. I finally had a moment of leisure, but Marilda kept lecturing me in my ear. Janica had told me a lot about her before, and though I didn't believe it at first, now I fully understood. Marilda thought I was serious about my work, but didn't take good care of myself. So, she suggested, "You big blockhead should start a romance. And isn't there someone kind, cheerful, and familiar to you right by your side?" Mug also nodded in agreement. These two were clearly putting on a show in front of me. Marilda did not make a contract with Janica. They're just close. That's why Mug and Marilda's relationship isn't like a superior-subordinate one, but Mug still seemed quite afraid of high-level spirits. Changing the topic, I asked, "Do you know what's been up with Janica lately?" She looked down. Marilda indicated that she knew Janica hadn't told me what had happened, so she couldn't tell me directly either. But she comforted me. "Don't worry about her. Letting her experience some things occasionally is good. She needs to learn some lessons from these experiences." After saying this, Marilda prepared to leave. After all, her presence consumed a lot of my magic, even though she was in the form for the best efficiency. I curiously asked if Marilda had other forms. Marilda answered, "Would you like a more beautiful girl? It's better on the eyes, but I don't think you'd be able to manage it. I didn't notice much a difference in your efficiency back then, and now, so I was curious." Hearing that, Marilda jumped on me toward the top of the mana stone. "Did you think you were handling the mana all by yourself? A spirit like me wouldn't contract with one person." I looked up at Marilda, then she disappeared. My current magic level couldn't sustain summoning a high-level spirit for such a long time, I thought while climbing the stone. If it's not my magic supporting Marilda, then who is it? I reached the top. If you think about it, the person contracted with Marilda is already quite obvious. I don't think this is a good place for a nap. Lucy sits alone, watching the sunset. I'm not here for a nap. The cabin's better for a nap, so so I curiously asked why she was here. She didn't like the empty cabin, so she went out for a walk, but I knew very well Lucy's real purpose, and this place is precisely the final stage of the third act. The distrustful saintus Clarice began to realize the darkness of the followers and gradually grew suspicious of the church. In order to condemn Clarice, the apostles of Telos descended upon Archon Island. The people in the academy were completely unaware of this, blindly believing the archbishop's one-sided story and rashly taking action. Whether it was Princess Phenia or Lortell or even the main characters and the principal, all of them joined in. In this tangled web of connections, everyone's blade ultimately pointed to one place. She was the one tasked with guarding Archon Island, according to her master's last words. Here, she looked down on everyone. Even when called a non-believer by the masses, she never complained. This person was the awakened Lucy Merrill. She subdued all of the main characters at Archon Island and single-handedly took down more than half of the people in the group. But in the end, her stamina runs out and she was defeated by Taylor, the sword master who has learned the final swordsman form. The truth came to light. Only then did everyone understand why Lucy wanted to kill the apostles of the gods. However, Lucy died in the misunderstanding of others. For the person involved, delayed understanding is more painful than the misunderstanding itself. In the end, Lucy kept everything to herself. However, I don't plan to stop her. But is it really necessary to sacrifice Lucy for the original plot? I don't think I am a cold-hearted person. It's just that, if things continue like this, we won't get a bad ending. The great Archmage, Glot, was both Lucy's master and her only family. Before he died, he asked Lucy to take care of Sylvania Academy. Only Lucy knew how heavy those words were. Lucy also needed to get rid of those muddy emotions. Though it would be a long battle, with many dangerous moments, this was an unavoidable part of Act 3's scheduled plot. However, this time, I don't plan to stand by and watch. At the same time, Lucy patted my thigh. She recently realized something. She seemed to be afraid of loneliness. I knew she was thinking about what would happen later. After all, when the snowstorm arrives in a few days, I would also leave the cabin for a while, but I would make sure to inform her of everything in advance. Several days later, at the Rose Garden, Clara found Belle with a gift in hand. Although everyone often mistook Annis for coming from a noble family, it was actually Clara who was the daughter of a viscount. Belle thanked her for the gift. This time, when returning to school, Clara had prepared gifts for her good friends. She quickly waved goodbye to Belle since she was very excited to talk to Janica and Annis. What she didn't know was that Belle didn't like blueberry pie, because to her, it felt like eating sand. At the same time, elsewhere, Clara sensed that something was off between the two. Did they have a fight? She wondered silently. Should I tell a cold joke to break this awkward silence? Just then, Janica suddenly called out to Annis, and Annis jumped out in shock. This confused Clara. You got a hug from Ed? She continued while looking like she was about to burst into tears. Meanwhile, I just finished building a wooden wind-blocking wall. Now, items like this no longer raise my stats and production proficiency. Do I need to look for something else to continue growing? Just then, I heard someone comment that it'd definitely be good to be prepared for strong winds. I looked up. It's a relief that you look healthy, young Master Ed. As soon as Belle finished speaking, Lucy was ultimately dragged back by her. Because a snowstorm was expected to last a week, and Lucy was the most likely to attempt an escape, Belle took special care of her. Looking at Lucy, one might think it was a life or death parting. Just then, Belle coughed, signaling me to use informal speech, but I immediately answered, I will continue to use formal speech. At that moment, Belle called out to me, Master Ed, do you really plan to spend a week-long snowstorm here? Belle doubted that my small cabin could withstand the cold of the snowstorm. However, I had prepared in advance. I explained to her, I did this just in case the snowstorm carries the cabin away. I secured the roof with ropes and firmly tied it down to the floor with nails. I also had all sorts of hunting gear neatly arranged. During this week of the snowstorm, I planned to focus on studying magic engineering in the spirit library. Then, I signaled to Belle not to worry, because I had already found a place to shelter from the snowstorm. However, from Belle's expression, it seemed she still had something on her mind. Then, Belle called me again. She remembered something about Annis from a few days ago, but didn't know how to start. In the end, she could only simply wish me luck. The scene switches to another side. Janica couldn't help but ask Annis, were you really hugged by Ed? Upon hearing this, Clara looked confused. However, judging by Annis's reaction, the answer seemed obvious. Is there perhaps some misunderstanding here? Clara cautiously asked. Before she could finish, Annis admitted, yes, to be honest, I flirted with Ed. She clenched her fist. Janica, I'm sorry, because I think that man is utterly unreliable. He looks just like a playboy, so I wanted to test him. Janica was confused. What? You're not lying? For real? Don't worry, he's not my type at all. He's so full of himself. I don't see what's good about him, and I definitely wouldn't consider dating him. Hearing this, Janica can't help but be emotional. You're being too mean, Annis. You don't even know Ed like that. Then, they became silent for a while. Annis added, I'm sorry for not telling you before I went to test him. Upon hearing the truth, Janica's tears started to flow uncontrollably. She thought to herself, what right do I have to be jealous? Am I being too presumptuous? However, Annis reassured her, you're quite the special person to that man. From what I've seen, you are definitely more than a friend to him. Hearing this, Janica couldn't be angry because everything Annis did seemed seemed to be for her. Seeing this, Clara breathed a sigh of relief. I thought you had fallen for Ed. But Clara quickly noticed something was off. Anis's expression seemed to reveal a different emotion. Could it be? No way, Clara speculated silently, her eyes filled with doubt, hoping it's not as dramatic as she thought. She then found a way to get Janica to leave first. You probably haven't been to the northern forest much lately. Right after that, Janica immediately scampered off. Just then, Anis stopped Clara. Could you introduce me to a man? If all else fails, break the norm. How about dating me? Upon hearing this, Clara was stunned. I've never thought about this. At this moment, Anis felt she was going crazy. But if you can't see the other person, maybe the feelings will fade. Once the break ends, the academic scholarship student work will end too. However, things are not going her way. Assistant Professor Claire is celebrating since the Academy scholarship students will continue as student assistants because their performance had been very good, especially Ed. Now she had nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, my magical training has gradually yielded results. From a basic apprentice, I have grown into a skilled magic student. I have also gained the ability to sense spirits and have successfully contracted with Mug and Marilda. Now, I can even contract 2 more spirits. Meanwhile, Janica has come to my cabin. I noticed that her spirit seems to have recovered a lot. The last time she was here, she looked quite downcast. Hearing this, Janica felt very shy. Is that so? I don't seem to remember. When I face Janica, my heart seems to soften. Perhaps it's because Janica is a character completely removed from the plot. Among my year, Janica is the only one I can call a friend. Then, she asked about my contract with Marilda. Although she did not witness it, she found it strange. Subsequently, I took out the glassed golden phoenix ring and explained its origin and my plans going forward. I told her that the matter of contracting with a middle-level spirit would have to be postponed. However, I still want to congratulate you. Contracting with your first high-level spirit is like starting a second life. After the snowstorm ends, it will be time for the student council president elections. As a sophomore class top student, Janica will definitely attract a lot of attention. In the script, although Janica is the Academy's president, she hasn't received special attention this year. But given her character, she would respect the other candidates, right? Meanwhile, Janica seemed to remember something and asked, is Tanya also participating? To this, I nodded affirmatively. Tanya has her own goals and ideas. She then asked, are you pretty close with your sister? I thought for a moment and said, I'm not sure if it counts as good. After all, I was disowned by my family, but she is still my sister. So, I want to get along well with her. I can't say we are very close, but I still cherish her. Hearing this, Janica silently lowered her head. Then, Janica tugged at my sleeve and asked in a whisper, I want to know what kind of gifts Tanya likes. Does she prefer gifts or food? This puzzled me. Did you do something to Tanya? Janica immediately shook her head in denial. No, but Janica is really bad at lying. The guilt made her hesitate for 3 seconds before she spilled everything. Fortunately, what she did wasn't anything serious. The scene shifts to another side. Starting tomorrow, Ophelis Hall will prohibit students from going out. However, the events of the past few days continue to haunt Kylie. The sight of that third year was terrifying. Most importantly, what she felt more than that was discomfort. His every move was too natural, which made Kylie doubt if she had misheard. But she distinctly remembers he had used honorifics with her. Does he know my secret? Kylie wondered to herself. At this moment, Clarice was filled with anxiety. She had invested a lot in maintaining her ordinary campus life. If someone discovered her real identity, her campus life would be over. Getting information about Ed wasn't difficult. The freshmen were all talking about a mysterious senior, said to live in a cabin in the northern forest. The snowstorm would last at least a week, during which no one could leave. And once the snowstorm was over and the new term began, things would become more complicated. I'm scared. I'm so scared of Ed Rothtaylor, the darkness, and the bitter cold. If I don't experience this colorful world, I'll regret it all my life, Clarice thought. She jumped out of the window, hold on to the magic engineering item, and transformed into Kylie. She didn't want to lose the freedom she worked so hard to obtain. To properly confirm it, she resolved to meet that man. Would saintus Clarice put herself in danger and distress by doing this? The scene shifts. Clebius' life had been dark from the start. When the Nortondale family ostracized him, only his brother stood by his side. What marked him most was the moment he plunged a knife into his brother's heart. Even then, his brother used his last strength to say something to him. But at that time, he couldn't hear it clearly. Was it a cursed last word? Clebius approached Assistant Claire and offered his resignation. Claire was puzzled. Did another department want you? Clebius denied it. It's not like that. He mentioned that he hadn't performed well in the examination work and even caused trouble for everyone. However, he was very satisfied with his work here. Claire thought the treatment here might not be good enough, so she asked, so, you still want to stay here, right? Clebius nodded awkwardly. Claire then comforted him, encouraging him to stay and continue working here. She knew that Clebius was a very responsible person. Finally, Clebius agreed to stay. The scene shifts to another side. Now, magic engineering and spirit formula infusion are now good enough to be called my specialties. After some training, I will be able to use these 2 skills flexibly. For the remaining week, I decided to devote myself to research at the spirit library. I had asked Six to help clean up here before, and he tidied everything up neatly. Even the books were arranged arranged in an orderly manner. Probably, ecchi also contributed to this. They probably did it while thinking of it as training. I must thank them properly for their hard work. Let's get started then. This time, my goals are very clear. The Glockseye that temporarily amplifies the proficiency of all sensitivity abilities. The Delheim's Hourglass that reverts all physical states by a few seconds, which removes all damage and wounds. I aim to create at least one legendary magic engineering item. I'll craft them repeatedly to raise my magic engineering skill, and once I'm skilled enough, I'll make other rare items. I've already brought all the materials here. Now, I just need to dismantle them with tools to start the creation process. Soon, I realized something was wrong. My tools seem to have been left in the cabin. I need to finish this task quickly, so I quickly decided to climb up. Let's go back. It's time for my body to do some work. Meanwhile, Clarice embarked on her journey to find the cabin. Although the snowstorm was severe, Clarice found it very exciting, like an adventure. Clarice wasn't afraid of encountering bad people because she had the protection of the Holy Magic's blessing. Can activate intermediate or higher level single target spells. Anyone who attempts to harm her will have the damage returned twofold. Therefore, no one here could threaten her life. However, when she faced Ed, she felt an inexplicable fear. Ed, once the heir of the Roth-Taylor family, had likely undergone the baptism of the Telos Order. Hence, the Holy Magic's blessing could not exert its full power against a baptized believer. Clarice was uncertain if Ed knew her true identity, so she had to confirm it herself. Then, she pushed open the door of the cabin. The moment the door opened, she accidentally bumped into something, scattering a mess of tools on the floor. Why are there no lights on here? She wondered. As she looked up, she saw a horrifying scene, blood all over the floor. It was like a scene from hell. Just then, she heard footsteps outside. Clarice panicked and could only think of hiding under a table. I opened the door. My face was fully covered to protect myself from the snowstorm. As I walked in, I didn't notice the mess in the dark. Clarice is under the table, daring not to make a sound. While I was searching for my tools, my hand slipped, knocking more items over. Soon, I found the tool I needed. I checked the tool carefully. At this moment, Clarice, watching me, was convinced the Ed before her was a merciless murderer. She was shivering from fear. When I bent down to pick up the fallen tools, I unexpectedly found someone hiding under the table. Who are you? Then I was able to recognize her. It was Kylie. What are you doing here? And why are you shaking? Before I could finish, what greeted me was a strike of holy magic divine explosion. Completely unguarded, I was slammed hard against the wall. The dust was blocking her vision. Soon, the dust settles. Seeing the bloodstain on the wall, Clarice thought she had killed someone and knelt down before me. I killed a person. Then she started praying and apologizing. Dear Telos, I have gravely sinned. I, who was supposed to live a life of purity, I have been stained with sin. I must burn in the depth. Before she could finish, I interrupted her. Hey, are you kidding me? However, Clarice did not answer. Instead, she fainted from fright. At this moment, I am covered in blood, and it looks like I'll have to spend time cleaning up again. Meanwhile, back in the Ophilis Hall, the duty maid noticed that the saintus was missing. Belle is aware of Kylie's real identity. The Order had decided that the person in charge, at least, needed to be aware of the truth. Although it would be a national crisis if the saintus perished in the snowstorm, the information couldn't be widely known yet. Since the saintus is protected by the holy magic blessing, the priority is to find her as quickly as possible. Belle decided to find Kylie on her own. According to the clues, her last known location was in the direction of the northern forest. Hearing this, Belle was shocked. The northern forest is that man's territory. His luck with women cannot be described as good. Rather, it's that no woman who becomes curious about him can escape. If these two are trapped in the cabin together in the coming days in this snowstorm, alone together, it's inevitable that some indescribable things might happen. Thinking this, Belle quickly shook her head, not daring to continue the thought. I must stop them at once. The saintus is in danger. There is a suspicious man in the northern forest, an expressionless man who walks around carrying the bloodied corpses of beasts. There were already rumors among the students. Of course, Belle knew the truth. Not long after, she can already see Ed's cabin in sight. Despite Ed's standoffish appearance, he was easy to talk to and was pretty considerate. He faithfully carries out his duties despite the many women who approach him. He's someone worth trusting. Upon learning that Clarice had gone to the northern forest, Belle immediately rushed there. After all, that man's luck with women is absurdly good. Just thinking about this gave Belle a headache. Master Ed probably doesn't know Miss Kylie's true identity, does he? As I expected, headmaid Belle quickly arrived here. Young Master Ed, could I ask for an explanation? Then, I explained the situation to her. Hearing this, Belle finally breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness nothing bad happened. The saintus came all this way, presumably because of something that happened before. Although I tried hard to act naturally, it still seemed somewhat off. Kylie's true identity should only be revealed much later. I can't let her know that I'm already aware of it now, but she has begun to suspect me. What should I do? Then, I gestured for the saintus to put down the chair she was holding. Hearing this, Belle and Clarice were stunned. So you knew? At this, I nodded affirmatively. After all, I am a baptized follower of Telos Order. When the magical disguise was dispelled at such close range, I naturally realized. Hearing this, Clarice slowly put the chair down. My plan from the beginning has not changed. Not to get involved with the main characters of the later storyline, but if I choose to look the other way, way, Saintus Clarice might do something unexpected. It would be better to honestly tell her that I already know her true identity to eliminate any unease. So, you're hiding your identity to experience life without being constrained by it, right? It must feel suffocating, doesn't it? Clarice didn't expect that everything about her had been seen through. I then signaled to her not to worry. I won't mention this to anyone. Seeing how freely I live in the forest, what do you think of my life? From the surrounding environment, Clarice deduced that Ed's life was more about survival. Everything has its light and dark sides, freedom included. If Adele represents the romantic who loves freedom, then this man represents the dark side of freedom. I apologized to Clarice for overstepping my bounds, then kindly told them to leave. Now that all the issues were resolved, Belle took Clarice away from the cabin. Reflecting on the experience, Clarice felt that the cabin was like a dream, yet it was filled with the smell of blood and harsh reality. She had never imagined that the man who had magically blocked their path lived such a life. It's sad that someone has destroyed the concept of freedom, but it is precisely because of this that she was even more convinced that coming to the Sylvania Academy was the right choice, as she had met a senior worthy of respect. Seeing this scene, Belle was stunned and speechless. Can it really be? It shouldn't be, right? Belle couldn't be sure of her speculation because she had no idea what Saintus Clarice was thinking at the moment, only feeling extremely anxious inside. Time quickly moved to a week later. Spring comes when you've nearly forgotten about it. That's what makes it special. Lortell invited me outside to a famous bakery. It's difficult to reserve a sit here, but since she came for business purposes, it was easy, and the shop owner immediately came up to greet her when he saw Lortell. After all, the flow of goods in the vicinity was controlled by their merchant guild. Goodness, what a harsh way to put it. You're maybe right, but I don't harass people. It turns out that after the snowstorm, there were problems with the supply of goods on Arkan Island. This bakery had ordered a lot of supplies they didn't need before the snowstorm, but canceled the order just before delivery. Due to the increase in food prices, Lortell could understand, but the other party hoarded the goods to sell elsewhere, which infuriated her. Therefore, Lortell used some tricks to sanction their supply chain. At this moment, the shop owner was desperately pleading for Lortell to spare their small shop, but Lortell paid no heed. I have a lesson in the afternoon. Do you want to walk me to class? In the end, the shop owner couldn't do anything. As we walked, she told me that their guild's funds were also stretched thin. Even if there's money, we still have to tighten our belts. To this, I nodded and said, I guess even you guys struggle sometimes. However, Lortell indicated to me that her specialty is managing money, so I don't have to worry, as long as no additional unnecessary expenses were incurred. Meanwhile, Lortell looked at me and noticed I didn't bring my textbooks. To this, I candidly admitted, I'm going to borrow books from the library. Consider it as a run to exercise. After hearing this, Lortell immediately suggested I buy a textbook, but she thought about it carefully. The textbooks in Sylvania are very expensive. Although Lortell was reluctant, she still pulled out her savings. How much is it all together? Is this what it feels like to be sponsored by a wealthy woman? Nevertheless, I still refused her kindness. At this, Lortell also felt helpless and then changed the topic. Next up is the student council president election. Aren't you planning to run? I curiously asked. For Lortell, the guild always comes first. If someone she likes became the student council president, that would be ideal. So, she asked me if I wanted to participate and expressed that if I did, she would support me fully. But I shook my head. Someone like me should pass. What about Tanya? Lortell asked, because she definitely did not want to support Fenia. But this question, I also found it hard to explain. Even if Tanya received the support of all the chiefs, she wouldn't succeed, given the disparity between her and Princess Fenia's status. Lortell's judgment was precise. According to the original storyline, it was Princess Fenia who eventually became the student council president. Tanya tried every possible way to gain even one more vote, but still, the gap in the number of votes was insurmountable. In the end, she became the antagonist who exits the stage. Then, Lortell asked me if I would support the princess. Strictly speaking, I support my own sister more. Hearing this answer, Lortell finally breathed a sigh of relief, because she feared I would admire and support the princess like most students. Suddenly, Lortell moved closer and leaned against my chest, whispering, Senior Ed, you should know my feelings for you, right? At this moment, she looked at me with affection, even with a hint of grievance. I was almost jealous just now. However, I remained unmoved. Did my tactic not work? Let me check the heartbeat. Seeing her getting closer, I immediately stopped Lortell's action. You're really cold-hearted. Did I do something to upset you? I denied her thought and explained, because before I graduate, I don't intend to date anyone. Lortell did not give up. What about after graduation? This question stunned me, because I really hadn't thought about what comes after graduation. For Lortell, this was crucial information. I don't know what graduation means to you, but it's not far off now. The prerequisite is that you successfully face the obstacle of rejecting me. Graduating smoothly is definitely not an easy goal, because at the end of the story, I will have to face the final boss. Only if the protagonist defeats it, the world can regain peace so that I can also graduate smoothly. Only with the support of both Saintus Clarice and Princess Fenia can Taylor defeat the final boss. This means that Taylor must grow according to the plot, gathering all allies to successfully complete the mission. The class division exam has ended according to the original plot, spot, Clarice continues her studies in disguise. Although it's somewhat unfair to Tanya, according to the script, Phineas is bound to become the student council president. Then, all the plot will return to its original track, allowing me to rest easy. However, Phineas' expectations are completely opposite to mine. Feeling extremely guilty, Phineas even considers giving up the election. If that really happens, the whole plot will fall apart. At this moment, Clebius is hiding in his room, worrying. Why do all these damn things come after me? Must there be a duel with me? Meanwhile, a man interrupts Zix, who is studying. He challenges Zix, but Zix seems not very interested. Aren't you already the freshman top student? However, Wade thinks differently. He feels that this is far from enough. Next, he plans to challenge the third-year Janica, as well as the mysterious senior rumored in the magic department. He aims to defeat everyone one by one. Currently, second-year Clebius has received his challenge letter, but Clebius seems to be avoiding this matter. Wade states that if he defeats Clebius, he will then challenge Elvira and afterward challenge Zix. So, I'm here now just to inform you. Why am I next? I'm not even a top student. Wade explained because the second year's top student, Lucy, is out of the question, so that makes Zix the technical top student. Although Wade is confident about his plan, Zix feels his idea is mistaken. It seems that the first lesson you need to be taught in Sylvania is that you're not always right. I don't think it'll be easy to defeat you. Wade's immediate defense. No, that's not what I meant, Zix said while grabbing Wade's shoulder. You won't be making it to me, let alone Janica or Ed. Zix adds with a cold laugh, because you won't be able to defeat Clebius. Hearing this, Wade is obviously pissed off. When I come out of the library, I happen to meet Zix. I express my gratitude to him for helping clean the library last time. Then, Zix tells me about the situation with Wade. Wade, the son of the commander of the Northern Border Territories, was born a skilled swordsman. In his first year, he easily claimed the top spot among the freshmen, but he wasn't satisfied with just that. Wade, with unstoppable momentum, challenged top students from all grades to duels, defeating each one of them. Even Zix lost to him. Though Zix was exhausted at the time, a loss is still a loss. The seemingly unstoppable Wade was ultimately defeated by Taylor, who had rapidly improved in a single term. I heard that there was going to be a welcoming festival for the new students tonight. Do you want to check him out? Zix asked, which I immediately declined. I have plans. I've seen Wade's face countless times, so I'm familiar with his appearance. I like to think that with my personality, I wouldn't care about these things. Yet, seeing how energetic this school is gives me energy too. The refreshing atmosphere of a new semester makes my footsteps lighter. Watching me walk away, Zix suddenly remembered something. He had forgotten to tell me that recently, Princess Phineas seemed quite listless. However, whenever someone brings up a topic related to Ed, Phineas would perk up and listen intently. One time, Zix tested it out and read a book aloud. Ed, Ward said, wake up. She seems to be very interested in Senior Ed's affairs. However, Zix felt these were just surface observations and decided to watch for a while longer before telling me. With the end of the snowstorm, it soon became warm. The scenery in the northern forest was worthy of being called spring. As usual, Lucy is sleeping on the roof of the cabin. At this moment, Janica was explaining to me about contracting with mid-level spirits. She called this her teacher Janica mode. It sounded cute, but she believed she exuded authority. Therefore, I seriously cooperated with her. Regarding the contract with mid-level spirits, it's crucial to find a spirit that matches one's own aura for a successful contract. Feeling a resonance between the elements and the spirit is key to the contract. The reason my contract with Marilda and Mug did not encounter such issues is due to my high affinity with the fire and wind elements. However, Janica hopes that this time I would choose a spirit whose element differs from the ones I've previously mastered. Janica is right. Contracting spirits that match one's strongest element, while convenient, doesn't allow for handling various complex situations. Although I can't master all elements like Janica, aiming to diversify the elements I can use is the optimal choice. I remember a game illustration about a spirit master, depicting a romantic scene of a spirit master wandering between forests and rivers, encountering destiny-bound spirits and communicating with them. Under Janica's guidance, I slowly closed my eyes, focusing my magical energy on them. At that moment, I opened my eyes. Countless mid-level spirits appeared before me. These were the spirits carefully selected and brought by Janica. Seeing this, I was astonished, worthy of a spirit sorcerer. All these spirits came here voluntarily. Soon, the spirits orderly lined up in 2 rows, introducing their abilities to me one by one. Even Mug started sizing them up. He's still a junior spirit, yet he already assumes the posture of a senior. Faced with so many spirits, I was a bit overwhelmed for a moment. Is it weird? Did I bring too many? Should we do this another time? No, it's nothing. However, inside I thought, is it really okay for my fated encounter to be like this? Meanwhile, a freshman welcome party was taking place elsewhere. Senior Janica from the 3rd year and Junior Lucy from the 2nd year were absent due to private matters. The teachers were worried this would make the event dull and lackluster, but even without their presence, it did not affect the atmosphere, because one of the most prestigious individuals at Sylvania Academy, Princess Phineas, attended the welcome party. Although the academy promotes equality among students, no one dares to casually converse with Phineas, who comes from a royal lineage. In the end, the only person who conversed first with Fenia at the welcome party was a loyal servant of the royal family and the heir of one of the 3 great swordsmanship families, the Collimore family. Freshman top student Wade. Although Fenia was playing chess with Wade, she couldn't concentrate because she was troubled by thoughts of Ed. Initially, Ed's presence was like a thorn in her throat, subtly uncomfortable. However, he saved Janica and built a house by himself under harsh conditions. As more time passed, his presence grew more significant, and even the freshmen held him in high regard. Seeing him diligently and earnestly live his life at the school, Fenia realized that her misjudgments were gradually magnifying. Fenia understood that she could no longer avoid this matter. You can be wrong sometimes. That's something that applies to all aspects of life. It had nothing to do with her status. This was Sylvania Academy, a place for learning. So, she made up her mind. She can't run from her mistakes forever. That would be foolish. It would take about 4 days to sort everything out, and then she would go to the Northern Forest campsite to find Ed, have a thorough talk with him, and leave everything behind. After making this decision, Fenia felt relieved, as if the heavy stone weighing on her heart had finally fallen. With that, Princess Fenia welcomed the belated arrival of spring. However, on the morning of the 3rd day, she received a shocking piece of news. Ed Rothtaylor was dead. As the story progressed, Tanya gradually adapted to her school life and made a few good friends. Although she was running for president against Princess Fenia, who was beloved by the people, which put pressure on her, she continued to live her life to the fullest. Yet, Tanya held on through the pressure and eventually met Lortell, who was a few years older than her. Lortell was a very mature businesswoman. Though she was unsure if she could successfully obtain the sage's sealed grimoire, she would try her best. However, the most surprising thing for Tanya was her older brother, Ed. Though Ed had once been expelled from the family, now he seemed more grounded and hardworking than ever. She was so young that her memories aren't great, and she may be misinterpreting it, but she recently had a strange dream of when she was younger. In it, she was at the low hills behind their residence, a place where flowers bloomed during the spring. She remembers going up holding hands with 2 people. One definitely belonged to Arwen, so the other reliable hand must have been her father, or perhaps when Arwen was still alive. Ed wasn't that much of a scoundrel. The night brings me many complicated thoughts. From your loving daughter, Tanya Rothtaylor. This is a deadly poison magic. Seal of deadly poison. If you are grazed in the slightest, you will flail around in pain and die. Just then, Crepin discarded the letter after reading it. What concerned him most was the student council election and the acquisition of Lortell's Book of the Sage. The rest of the matters didn't interest him. However, considering that Tanya might not be able to handle the sage's sealed grimoire issue on her own, Crepin decided to send some of his vassals to assist her while also handling other affairs. It's for business reasons, so the academy has allowed it. Now be on your way. Both of them nodded in response and made their way to the academy. At that moment, Crepin slowly removed a glove, revealing a demonic hand. This hand had the ability to view causality, predicting the results of any potential variables, and it was called the highest level magic, cause and effect determination. By setting an action as the cause, one could see the inevitable result that would follow. However, cause and effect determination required a vast amount of magical energy, so Crepin typically wouldn't use it lightly. It was only in the face of major events that he would use this magic to confirm the inevitable outcome. When he activated cause and effect determination, the crystal ball showed images of Ed being murdered and pushed off a cliff. Janica tried to reach out to Ed but miserably failed. Janica couldn't believe what had just happened and slowly looked back at the killer. This is the end of the vision Crepin saw. Although Ed was his biological son, Crepin considered it a necessary sacrifice. 3 days before Ed's death, the support rate results for the student council president election were officially announced. As written in the original story, Tanya's support rate was only 5%. Princess Fenia is so popular that all the people of the Klol Empire would have heard her name at least once. If Princess Fenia officially entered the race for student council president, no matter what happens, the chance that she'll win is 0. Knowing her chances were nearly 0, Tanya felt regret but had to abandon hope. At that moment, Zix, who was passing by, greeted her and signaled that she could ask him for help anytime if she didn't understand something. Seeing this, the classmates behind them cast envious glances. After all, Zix was a well-known figure in the 2nd year. At the same time, Lortell also came over to discuss the sage's sealed grimoire with Tanya. Even Lucy, the strongest magician in Sylvania, smiled and greeted her. Her connections are really different from ordinary students like us. Tanya is so cool. Hearing this, Tanya can't help but feel embarrassed. Although she didn't know why, she smiled back at them. Back in her room, Tanya thought seriously. She realized her popularity was unusually high, but she hadn't done anything. If there had to be a reason, it must be because I'm Ed's sister. At that moment, Tanya felt very guilty. She had always thought her brother was worthless, but now it seemed that she was the least useful. Just then, she heard something. Her room door slowly opened. Cadex and Knox from the Rothtaylor family's vassals appeared in front of her. They were here to help Tanya with the sage's sealed grimoire and the student council president election. However, there was new news about the student council president that morning. Princess Fenia announced that she would not participate in the election. Now, everyone is hotly discussing this matter, including Janica and Ed. dead. However, since it's just an announcement, there could still be changes. I began thinking of the plot for the 4th act. The final boss of Act 4, Crepin Rothtailor, with his perfect workflow and benevolent appearance, has convinced everyone that he is the kind-hearted patriarch of the Rothtailor family. However, only Princess Phinia has noticed his darker side. As someone who holds power in both the royal family and the academy, Princess Phinia has the ability to lead and oppose Crepin, who is about to reach out to Sylvania Academy. The strongest ally must let the story proceed according to the original script, but Princess Phinia unexpectedly does not plan to run for student council president. Meanwhile, Janica is angrily staring at me. I'm slowly getting the feeling now. The feeling that you're going to do something reckless again. I can't accept you getting hurt and bleeding by yourself again. You've already worked so hard, she said petulantly. No matter what it is, I'll help you. Then, I honestly told her my thoughts. I think it would be better for Princess Phinia to become the student council president. This surprised Janica. Didn't she do something bad to you? And Tanya is your sister, so I thought you'd support her. Just then, Zix interjected to interrupt Janica. There are a lot of eyes. Aren't you two being too scandalous in broad daylight? Zix came to tell me about the reasons Princess Phinia is not running for election. He described, she's like an alpha wolf that has lost its pack and is wandering alone, a pack leader who has killed her pack due to her own wrong choices. Even if you aim an arrow at it, it will not react. Princess Phinia's eyes conveyed this sentiment as if she was in a state of complete lack of confidence, unable to do anything. After reminding me that it might start raining soon, Zix left. Zix's animal-like instincts are stronger than the ordinary human senses, and his guess is likely correct. The worst-case scenario might be that Princess Phinia has lost her hostility towards the Rothtailor family. What should I do next? Just then, Janica happily said, if it rains, it's the best condition for training water elementals. Let's go to the northern cliffs tomorrow and try to control a mid-level spirit. I thought for a moment and realized Janica was right. Let's just do what we can do now. Meanwhile, back in the cabin, Lucy noticed that it was about to rain. Just then, she sensed something, so she immediately jumped off the roof and landed perfectly. Then, she smoothly cast a spell to ignite the flame on the bonfire. Not long after, I arrived at the cabin. It's finally spring, but because of the rain, it'll be harder to go out. Then I looked at the sleeping Lucy. The rain that drizzles onto her body makes Lucy depressed. If it's going to rain, I hope it passes quickly. The next day, I arrived at the northern cliff, and like Zix and Lucy expected, it was raining. Mug shared that it's his first time coming to the northern coast. He keeps on talking, and I just listened. Just then I noticed someone arrived, so I asked Mug to keep quiet. I aimed my arrow at them. It's an honor to see you again, young Master Ed. Act 4's final chapter scene. The Crepin Showdown's third phase middle bosses, Cadex and Nox, the vassals that are in charge of darkness within the Rothtailor family. They should be faces I'm happy to see, but I don't really feel that way. Both of them slowly walked closer to me. Immediately after, Nox called out to me. I've heard about you, young Master Ed. We came here on the order of Crepin. Our goal is to assassinate you. However, we repent. Hearing this, I was shocked. Then, both of them kneel in front of me. Our servant had a great grudge against you, young Master Ed. That's why we tried to kill you with this deadly cursed dagger. But the more we investigate the evaluations within the academy in your life, we found sharpness from your youth, and we realized that you had returned as the true heir. We'll explain everything to Crepin. Please become the heir and restore the honor of the Rothtailor. There was a moment of silence. Then I scoffed, responding without hesitation. Don't make a fuss. It seems to me you just came to kill me. Nox and Cadex exchanged glances, then quickly moved apart, both taking a combat stance. Cadex's wind sword whipped up a strong gust, swirling the leaves on the ground. Nox's fire staff then ignited a fierce flame, instantly heating the air around them. Fortunately, I was able to dodge their attack. I immediately released an element arrow, which they also blocked. These are the ones, the vassals who are responsible for the darkness of the Rothtailor family. Just then, Nox speaks. Do you remember Miliana, the poor girl who lost one of her eyes as a mere plaything of yours? She is my daughter. Nox shouted while aiming for an attack. He attacked me with blazing flames. Although it was the old Ed who did that, now I have to carry the burden for his actions. Now that you mention it, that did happen. Hearing my voice, Nox was shocked. I was able to block his attack with a protective barrier. Revenge is always empty, Nox. I added. Nox grabbed his mace again. I know that it only leaves an emptiness, but this is not a story for you, young master. Then, he proceeds to attack and break my barrier. It seems the young master has indeed grown a lot, Cadex said with a cold laugh, but I knew they wouldn't stop there. Next, I had to fight with all my might to prove that I deserve not only to survive, but also to shut them up with my strength. Cadex didn't expect me to dodge their well-coordinated attacks several times. Soon, they cornered me at the edge of a cliff, seemingly with no way out. Seeing this, Nox immediately charged forward. He didn't realize this was exactly the trap I had set. I immediately commanded Mug to attack, and then a dagger pierced through Nox's body. Seeing this, Cadex was incredulous. You actually contracted a spirit? He murmured in shock. Just now, I had used basic defensive magic to block their attacks and deliberately let Nox get close. Then, I activated a spirit technique, which exploded on Nox. At this moment, Cadex couldn't get close. I took the opportunity to distance myself, and 2 arrows swiftly shot out from the smoke. Although Kadex dodged one, he was hit by the other. How can he attack in such an explosion? Kadex looked at me, his tone full of disbelief. The blessing of fire and misfortune is currently activated. That's why I am temporarily immune to flame. It seems a lot of interesting things have happened to you lately, but next time, aim for the enemy's vital points. But of course, there won't be a next time. Then, he obscured my view with an attack. When the dust settles, he saw I avoided the attack by using Nox's body as a shield. The next instant, he charged at me. However, a spirit had already appeared behind him. Kadex instantly realized that all this was a trap I had set up in advance. Laika, the Lieutenant Water Spirit, is helping me all along. At this moment, he struggled to breathe. He let go of his weapons. The dagger also falls into the ground. Kadex is trying to fight back, but still meaningless. Just then, Nox grabbed the dagger, his body covered in burns and stab wounds. Injuries severe enough to knock a normal person unconscious, but the self-proclaimed veteran of countless battles, the Bear Knight, still clung to consciousness. This guy, he can still stand. This is something even I did not expect. Fortunately, I had the blessing of the storm, which would blow the enemy away if I received an unexpected attack. Then, a powerful gust of wind magic pierced through Nox's body, rendering him incapable of fighting. There was another moment of silence. Then, both of them fall to the ground. Looking at the two lying on the ground, I silently plotted a plan. Nox signaled me to give him a quick death, but I interrupted him directly. The one who should say that line is me. I spoke coldly. I know the family head sent you to make sure I would certainly die. Even if you die, others will be sent to kill me. Hearing this, Nox was confused. Instead of living a life on the run, at least you won't have to live in the shadow of vengeance anymore. This is a small gift I leave for the loyal vassal of the Roth-Taylor family. Before Nox could react, I plunged the dagger into my own body. This scene was unfortunately witnessed by Janica, who arrived too late. When she looked at what was happening, she saw the scene of Ed falling off the cliff. She immediately ran to me, but was powerless to help. Janica was still too late. She could only watch helplessly as Ed plummeted into the seemingly bottomless abyss. Although she kept calling out Ed's name, there was no response. Nox sensed trouble. He hadn't expected a witness to appear at this moment. However, when he tried to flee, he found that his body couldn't move. Then, a powerful aura burst forth from Janica's body. Nox, a Bear Knight, thought he had experienced everything possible on the battlefield. Yet, he had never imagined such a scene. Standing before him was a being higher than a high-level spirit. A god-level spirit, one of a kind from each element in nature, was summoned and controlled by this young girl. At this moment, Janica looked like a demon from hell, coldly staring at Nox. Do you even know what you've done? Just after Janica witnessed Ed falling off the cliff, she summoned a god-level spirit with her grief and rage using a massive magic circle. The last time she did this, she only summoned the right arm of the highest dark spirit Glaskin, but this time's spirit was even more terrifying. Just its tail was the size of the royal palace. It was Theorpus, the highest-ranking fire spirit, who burned down the entire Apith mountain range in the Mythic Age. Even if Janica could now only summon one arm, it was enough to incinerate the northern forest entirely. Looking at the incomprehensible god-level magic circle before him, Nox was completely dumbfounded. In the presence of such a terrifying entity, his fate was sealed, death. Then, Nox felt his blood boiling, as merely the aura was enough to suffocate him. Just then, a powerful gust of wind countered this oppressive force. It was the high-level wind spirit, Marilda. Despite Nox not understanding what was happening before him, his only thought was to flee. However, his escape routes were blocked. Even if you are Marilda, you can't stop me. At this moment, Janica was blinded by rage, but Marilda didn't show any sign of dodging. She immediately spoke up, urging Janica to calm down and think things through. It wasn't you who summoned me, Janica. Hearing this, Janica suddenly realized what Marilda meant. Ed was still alive. Meanwhile, I finally climbed ashore from the sea. All thanks to my studies from the previous period. I had focused all my efforts on researching magic engineering items, and this decision saved my life. The legendary magic engineering item Delheim Hourglass allowed me to restore my physical condition at the brink of death, returning me to a few seconds earlier and eliminating all negative effects and damage. The fatal injuries caused by the fall from the cliff and the curse of the toxic imprint were all removed. However, the scars left from the battle were unavoidable. The wounds stung unbearably as they were eroded by the seawater. Currently, my body temperature is dropping rapidly, and something seemed off about the situation on the cliff just now. To ensure safety, I summoned Marilda, but I'm unclear about the current situation on the cliff. Although I didn't expect the magic item obtained in the third act to be used so soon, and it's regrettable to say it wasn't a pity, at least I survived. I know that Crepin likely used cause and effect determination magic, seeing a prophecy about me. If he finds out I escaped from Kadex and Nox, he will definitely use a huge amount of magic to repeatedly use cause and effect determination magic until he sees a new outcome where I truly die. Therefore, this time, I must die in their hands. Although I don't know why Crepin is so intent on killing me. If I confirm a future of death, perhaps he will temporarily cease his focus on me. He wouldn't send vassals to the academy for no reason. It's either to assist Tanya in her campaign for student council president or to acquire the sage's sealed grimoire. In any case, I must wait until these matters matters are resolved before I can reveal myself. For now, I must live as a dead man. Currently, I am too weak to move, but the noise on the cliff soon caught my attention. When I saw that it was Tarkan, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I knew it was Janica who sent him. However, before I could react, Janica ran up from behind Tarkan and hugged me tightly. In that moment, the world seemed to quiet down. Since I had no strength, I could only let her hold me tightly. Then, I whispered to her, "Sorry for making you worry." Janica continued to hold me tightly, seemingly unwilling to let go. But right now, finding a place to shelter from the rain is most important. We soon found a small cave at the edge of the cliff. After entering the cave, I explained the next steps of the plan to her. However, Janica's face was filled with happiness, clearly delighted by my survival. "I will bring daily necessities for you next." Although the cave is spacious, Janica has been holding my hand tightly since the beginning. When everything quieted down around us, Janica seemed to realize her reaction belatedly, and her face turned slightly red. Then, Janica, blushing, hugged her knees and buried her head into them. Although it is raining now, it seems this rain will continue for a while, and there's not much we can do about it for the time being, but I still have some tasks to complete. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lucy was leaning against the door of the small cabin, not entering the room, obviously waiting for someone to come back. Normally, if it were Ed returning, he would usually pass through the bushes, check if the campfire had gone out, kick the wooden fence a few times to check its sturdiness, then tidy up the wet clothes on the clothesline and push all the rusted tools under the tent. After that, he would return to the cabin, wipe the rain off his shirt. Finally, he would turn to Lucy and greet her. No matter how busy Ed was during the day, he would always return here. Then, he would light the oil lamp, sit at the desk and read books on magic engineering, while Lucy quietly slept in front of the fireplace. The sound of the rain, the burning of the fireplace, and the turning of book pages all brought an inexplicable sense of security to Lucy. However, this time, Lucy smelled a trace of blood, which puzzled her. The northern forest is usually seldom trodden by people. If it wasn't Ed, who could it be? What was their purpose here? Lucy was not usually curious about these matters, but the smell made her uneasy, so she decided to investigate. Soon, she found two injured people. "Who are you?" Lucy asked coldly. "I am Knox, a vassal of the Lortell family. Help me, I've been seriously injured." Knox quickly explained that they were injured due to accidentally falling from a cliff. However, Lucy clearly did not believe his explanation. She has a strong intuition, and the aura emitted by these two made her extremely alert. She smelled Ed's scent on them. "If you tell the truth, perhaps I will spare your life." The scene shifts to another location. Professor Flurbin picks up a dagger on the ground with traces of deadly poison and, after a careful observation, says, "It seems they have already used the deadly poison on the dagger, and the person affected by the curse is already dead." Then, the professor begins to piece together what happened. Janica and Ed had originally planned to practice magic here, but they witnessed the entire process of Ed being killed. A heartbroken Janica confirmed the answer, and the leaders were Rothtail's servants, Cadex and Knox. Due to the sudden nature of the event, Professor Flurbin decides to report the situation to the dean as soon as day breaks. At that moment, he senses someone approaching from behind. When he turns around, he sees Lucy instantly appearing in front of the group. Worried that Lucy might do something regrettable, Janica plans to go back to the cabin later to explain everything to her. However, Lucy does not heed her advice. Lucy walks straight to the bow and arrows used by Ed, picks them up. In the next instant, an immensely powerful aura bursts from within her. In a blink of an eye, Lucy teleports away. Professor Flurbin sighs. Lucy is definitely going to settle accounts with the Rothtail family. Janica, upon learning of the situation, says she must stop Lucy, fearing that Lucy might make a grave mistake. Meanwhile, Cadex and Knox have been taken away by Lucy. She has brought them above the Ophilis Hall. Lucy holds no fondness for the Rothtail family, as they had previously expelled Ed from their ranks. Moreover, these two men had emerged from Tanya's room, leading Lucy to direct all her suspicions towards Tanya. Then, Lucy directly crushed the two men. She blasted through the defenses of Ophilis Hall, and Tanya's room was blown apart. However, Tanya was not found inside. At that moment, Lucy still maintained a cold expression. "Where's Tanya Rothtail?" Meanwhile, a voice interrupted her actions. It was Belle, the head maid at the Ophilis Hall. Belle has taken care of Lucy longer than anyone else and is well aware of her character. Lucy would never harm anyone, but now she seemed on the verge of losing her sanity. Belle tried to persuade Lucy, but just a glance, and the high-level magic engineering item was instantly destroyed. Then, Lucy erupted with an extremely terrifying magical force. With an intense gaze, she commanded, "Bring Tanya to me." Meanwhile, on the other side, a fierce match was underway in the underground arena. Wade was challenging a senior from the higher grades, and from the look of things, he was winning effortlessly. Then, Wade turned his attention to Zix behind him. "You're next." Hearing this, Zix sighed. Although one-on-one combat is not Alvira's specialty, he had after all defeated the alchemy department's head, a swordsman from the distinguished Collimore family. Wait, perhaps he really might defeat Zix. Just then, a loud noise interrupted everyone present. Could we be under attack? No matter what, they need to go out and check the situation now. When Zix looked out the window, he was stunned, because everyone standing outside had turned into statues. This was the high-level high-level magic time prison released by Lucy. This magic, developed by someone who spent their life researching it, Lucy could learn just by glancing at it. For Zix, even if he spent days and nights studying, he might not understand the principle of this magic. But when he saw the familiar face under the hat, he realized it was Lucy Merrill. Meanwhile, the maids were evacuating the students inside. Next, Wade and Zix asked the maids about the situation, although they also didn't know exactly what had happened. If what Miss Lucy said was true, Ed, the third-year magic department student, was already dead. Upon hearing this, Zix was shocked. It was claimed that the assassin was a servant of the Roth-Taylor family. However, Zix suddenly stopped, which puzzled Wade and the maid. Then, Zix signaled them to leave first. Wade thought it wise to retreat, but Zix ran towards the staircase because he needed to confirm something now. Quickly, he broke into Tanya's room, but the room was empty. Less than 5 minutes had passed since the first explosion, yet Tanya was nowhere to be seen. Then, Zix's gaze fell on the wardrobe next to him because it was the only place left to hide. When Zix opened the wardrobe, he found Tanya cowering inside like a frightened hamster. No matter how you looked at it, all the evidence pointed to Tanya, but Zix told himself to calm down and think carefully. Tanya, because of her relationship with Senior Ed, received high praise in the academy. Although she seemed to harbor resentment towards Senior Ed, she did not seem like someone who would stab someone in the back. Zix took a deep breath to calm himself. Then Zix stopped Tanya, speaking in a serious tone. Listen, Tanya Roth-Taylor, you must answer my question truthfully. Did you instruct the servants to assassinate Senior Ed? Hearing this, Tanya was so frightened that she immediately burst into tears and shook her head vehemently. No, really, I didn't. Zix lowered his head and pondered for a while and could only conclude if Tanya dared to show herself in front of Lucy, she would surely die. He believed that Ed would never want to see such a thing happen, even though Ed's death also made him incredibly sad, and many things remained unexplained. Then, Zix took off his cloak and covered Tanya with it, because the only certain thing now was that Tanya could not show herself. He had to stop Lucy. After all, Senior Ed would not want Lucy's hands to be stained with blood. Just then, a voice came from behind, interrupting Zix's thoughts. Senior Zix, don't you understand the situation yet? If we can't stop that monster outside, we all will be in danger. Therefore, handing over Tanya is the correct decision. Zix did not agree with the suggestion. He firmly said, I'll act according to my judgment. Wait. At this moment, Tanya was cowering in the wardrobe, trembling all over. The other party sneered, since you have chosen a wrong decision, I must enforce my will by force. No matter how you resist, I will take Tanya away. Meanwhile, Lucy launched several attacks with Ed's bow and arrows, instantly destroying half of the rose garden. A nearby statue was also blown down, landing right in front of the fleeing Clebius. When Clebius saw the statue clearly, he gasped. It was the statue of the fourth-year alchemy department top student, Dorothy. Clebius's legs went weak as he thought. If even the senior from the higher grades was defeated, how could I, a mere Clebius, handle this situation? He trembled as he lifted his head to look at the sky, his eyes filled with despair. Just as he met Lucy's gaze, Clebius was so frightened that he took off running, muttering a bunch of words. My damn life, why does it always make me encounter such bad luck? He hurried away, completely unaware of the stones under his feet, and fell flat on his face. Rain kept falling on him, soaking him through. The sudden events left him at a loss. Damn it, this damned life. Just then, a cold voice interrupted his self-pity. What are you doing, foolish Clebius? The speaker was Alvira, who clearly disdained his disheveled appearance. Since the last Glaskin battle, you've really outdone yourself, like a joke. Facing this situation, she continued, now, who else but us top students can stop that monster? We must buy some time. We need to hold out for at least half an hour. Then, without any mercy, Alvira kicked Clebius's shin, her tone commanding. Looks like you still have enough energy to run back to the academic building. If you see any faculty, remember to call them over for help. After saying this, Alvira left while looking back. Clebius stood dazed in the rain, mumbling to himself, damn it, I'm such a pathetic and useless waste. He clenched his teeth, shivering all over as the rain hit his face, mixing with tears streaming down. Other than lying in the rain, he could do nothing else. Meanwhile, back at the cave, Janica hurried to my side, her expression anxious as she explained Lucy's situation. After listening, I nodded and pondered for a moment. Then, I immediately stood up. I know Lucy's character. She must have gone to Ophelis Hall looking for Tanya. Though I'm exhausted, I have to act, because my poor sister is really in danger. This is something I need to handle myself.